Okay, I'm going to demonstrate some of the introductory principles to creating a composite image. One of the things that you will need is some kind of background, which I have isolated here as bridge, and some kind of object or multiple objects. Um, right now I'm going to use this apple and I'm going to stick it on the bridge. And this is not the only way that you can do this, but it is definitely one way, and so we'll begin this way. So the first thing I'll do is double click on this, and I'll open with Photoshop CS6. Now to place something else, first of all I'm going to move this over so we get to see everything. Hit the green button, which makes it fit the screen perfectly. And I'm going to, now I just have one layer. I'll instinctively double click on that and turn it into layer 0. What layer 0 does is allow me to do anything I want to with that layer. It's not locked like a background layer. And now I want to make another layer, but I want a second image on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, and this is the Place command, and I'm going to find the object that I want. Now in Place command I'm going to use Apple PSD, and I'll hit Place. And it places my apple somewhere on the image, and if you look now in the layers, there's an apple layer and it's sitting over the background layer of the train tracks. Notice that there's this crossbar right here. This means that it actually hasn't been placed yet. I have to say, yes, do I want it here? I could move it about if I wanted. I could also shrink it down if I wanted as well, but I can do that later. Hit Command Z to get it to the right proportions, and I'll just hit return for yes, this is where I want it. It places it here. Notice that the default is to place it as a smart object, and that's fine. I think we will be able to use that pretty well as a smart object, at least initially. Now clearly this is not a very convincing placement because the background of the apple is still around the object. So how do we take care of that? One might be tempted to go over the eraser tool maybe and start erasing, but if you'll notice you can't really erase a smart object, so you'd have to turn it into a vector, and that becomes a problem. A much better way is actually to use a mask and to mask out the parts you don't want. Now, a mask doesn't come automatically with an image layer like it does an adjustment layer, so you have to go and fetch it yourself by going down here to this icon right down here, and you're going to add a layer mask onto that layer. So now you have the layer and the layer mask. Now, just like a layer mask, you can actually use a paintbrush and make sure the paintbrush is set to black. I have the opacity at 100%, and I could actually start painting around the background. And sometimes that is the best way to do things. Almost never should you default to this unless it's your last possible option. The reason being is that once you start getting in tight around the apple, it becomes quite a challenge to get it accurate. Right? It's also, imagine something that was much more complicated than an apple. Would be significantly harder to do. And notice I'm kind of going in. I might make a mistake and I, cut out the stem. Now, just like your standard mask, I can go in here or hit X and turn it into a white paintbrush, make it smaller, and paint the stem back in. Basically what I'm doing is just painting black back in. But you can tell I'm going to have to get zoomed in, I'm going to have to do this stuff by hand, and some people find it very meditative, but we're late enough in the semester that I don't think we have time for meditative. I think we have to be more expedient. Although, I just wanted to let you know that this is definitely one of the ways to do it. Also notice what's happening with the apple. It's getting a little transparent in some places, so I'd have to add that back. Alright. Alright, so here's my apple. I back up. The edges are a little funny, but it is definitely one way, again, using the mask. With the mask defined, clicked, I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, and I'm just going to fill that with white. So I'm going to fill the mask with white. Watch what happens when I hit OK. The mask fills with white, and we're back to the same place that we were before. So instead of doing that, I want to do something where I can isolate the background. And luckily, this apple was shot against a fairly uniform background. And this is why I was getting folks encouraged to shoot against a black background or a white background or something where the object stands out. My next strategy is I'm actually going to, with the apple selected, I'm going to throw away the mask, and I'll show you why. Mask is thrown away. And I'm going to do the selection first. I'm going to go up here to the magic wand tool. I'm going to click on that. And I have this magic wand. And I'm going to click and watch what happens. I'm going to click. And notice I've gotten a lot better, at least on top, I've gotten a lot better registration around the apple. There's still some areas that I have not gotten with this method. However, I can either increase the tolerance, or another thing that which is up here, so I can increase the tolerance to maybe 20. And then once I do that, I can go back down here, I can hit Command D to get rid of the selection and try again. Notice I've gotten more at this point. And I could keep on going back until I got the right tolerance. Another thing that's a little quicker for me is once I've gotten an initial selection like this, I can hit the Shift key and I can go down to the areas that haven't been selected and then click on those. So notice what happened. With just 2 clicks, I was able to isolate the entire apple. Well, that's not entirely true because I didn't isolate the apple. What I did was isolate the non-apple. Right now, if I were to make a mask, the thing that would be masked out would be the apple, and the thing that would be left in would be the background, and that's clearly not what I want. So the next thing I have to do is take the selection that I've made and invert it. And so what I have to do is to go up to Select and Inverse, or Shift Command I. And what that does is instead of selecting the white background, it selects the apple. Now with the apple selected, I'm going to go back down to this area and I'm going to hit the mask. And so watch what happens when I hit the Add Layer Mask command. The Add Layer Mask command automatically adds a layer mask that masks out the object. So once you have the indication that you've made a selection, then all you have to do after that is add the mask. There's something I want to go back to and show you. So I'm going to go here and go to History and just back up one and select Inverse. Most of you probably know this, but I want to make sure everyone does. If you look at this, you'll see this outline that tends to be moving, and they refer to this as marching ants. Marching ants is what you get to indicate that you've made a selection. And so these marching ants are right here. So I just wanted to let you know that. So I'm going to go back to the layer mask area, and I have my apple. All right, so my apple is not convincingly sitting here right now, but I'm going to, in future videos, I'm going to show you how to create a context for this apple.